Welcome back, y'all. Sorry, the mic was off. It happens. Trying to run two courts at the same time is crazy. Um, there was some talk behind the scenes by the judge with the lawyers.
We can line them up and bring them in.
And it was quite interesting. She was kind of telling the lawyers they need to get their act together. Um, because they needed to notify the court, Madam Court Reporter, before trial at 8 o'clock in the morning, how many pieces of evidence that they were going to bring in.
You are unmuted.
So she was kind of like, nope, can't do that. All right, let me get this up. It looks like we are now switching to cross, not direct. We'll see where we are.
All right. Could we have the witness, please?
So the judge was making sure that the lawyers knew that they needed to present the evidence list by 8 a.m. so Madam Court Reporter can get her evidence tags numbered and know how many she needs to present for that day, which is a reasonable request, I believe. Was over at the trial of David Stewart in the murder of Karen Stewart. I don't know if I'm going to continue that or not. We'll see. What I might do is just do a synopsis at night, kind of give a review, and not totally do all day, every day, depending on, we're going to be Tuesday. There will be no trial for the Karen Reed. I will have to go and get some x-rays done and do some stuff like that. I have a doctor's appointment Wednesday and Thursday. So on Tuesday, I won't be live for a good part of the day. But I will come on maybe Tuesday late afternoon and catch up on the other trial.
With respect to the photographs that were just marked as exhibits of the orange T-shirt, that was item that was marked as 7-1. Is that correct? I'm sorry, 7-17.
Yes, that's correct.
So similar to how you had marked off areas of either damage or red-brown stains, was that similar to what you did with the gray hooded sweatshirt? Is that similar to what you did with the orange T-shirt as well?
Yes, that's correct.
And then there were two other clothing items that you examined, being a pair of jeans and a set of sneakers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with reference to the jeans, that was marked as item 7-1, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with respect to the sneakers, that was marked as item 7-4, is that correct?
Each sneaker had its own item number. One was 7-3 and one was 7-4.
And with respect to the evidence as far as the stickers and sort of the denotations that you had made in regard to either damage or red-brown stains, was that similarly done with respect to each of those remaining clothing items as well?
Yes, that's correct.
You know what I may approach?
Yes.
She's getting a little snippy with her yeses.
Showing you a series of
Just to notice, just something I recognize.
8 photographs. Do you recognize those?
Yes. Hey, y'all, thank you for joining me. Y'all have a great day today. I appreciate you.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are photographs that I took of the pair of jeans.
And what's contained in those photographs, a fair and accurate portrayal of your observations of those jeans when you conducted your examination of them at the lab?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost the seat to introduce and admit the next exhibits.
All right, and there's no objection, you said, Mr. Jackson, correct?
If this is your first time joining me, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. I'm Ada Kay. I am your alternate juror. I have only been doing this for 11 weeks, so patience appreciated, but love is given.
Yes, please. Your Honor, if I may, with the court's permission, publish some of the photographs in the packet from 232 to 241.
Okay,
For this phase.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have, excuse me, photograph 9862. Ms. Harden, do you recognize what's up on the screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 231?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's a photograph I took of item 7-17, the orange T-shirt, and it's the exterior front.
And Ms. Gilman, 9863. And again, Ms. Harden, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 232?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the exterior back of item 7-17.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9867. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on sort of the upper right portion of that where the stickers are. Now, Ms. Hardy, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 233?
Yes, I do.
And again, using the laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention to any items that you, any areas of this shirt that you marked on.
I marked 3 specific red-brown stains using these stickers and letters A, B, and C.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to keep the zoom in, but go to the bottom left of the photograph. And similarly, Ms. Hartnett, within this zoomed in portion of Exhibit 233, could you, using a laser pointer to draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, you noticed there?
I noted red-brown stain D, which I marked with the sticker, and D on the bottom right.
Last thing, Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9873. And Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is now marked as Exhibit 239. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on the upper left portion of the photograph. And again, Ms. Hartnett, if you could, using the laser pointer, just draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, you noted there.
I noted this specific red-brown stain, and I marked it E.
And Your Honor, similarly, with the court's permission, if I could publish what's been marked now as Exhibit 242 through 249.
okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9878.
I am screenshotting these, so if you hear a little bling, it's my screenshotting. I like to screenshot or screenshoot the information.
Ms. Hartnett, direct your attention of the screen with now been marked as Exhibit 42, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's a photograph of the exterior front of the jeans with the belt, item 7-1.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9887. And as you testified before, similarly to the other clothing items that you testified about, did you mark off certain items of interest or areas of interest on this item as well with respect to the jeans?
Yes, I did.
And is that depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9888. And if you could just zoom in, Ms. Gilman. And again, Ms. Harden, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, direct the jury's attention to those areas that you noticed or that you marked off in respect to this.
I marked off red brown stains A, B, C, D, and E on the front of those jeans.
Thank you. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Starting to showing you another series of client photographs. If you could just review those. Do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of the sneakers, items 7-3 and 7-4.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth seeks to introduce the minutes of the next exhibits.
Okay.
No objection.
Thank you.
We are finally getting some scientific evidence. And I'm like,
Thank you.
thank you. But we really don't have anything affirmative. They took everything out of the housing of the light. They didn't find anything really there. They have a human hair, which appears to be a little bit too long for a
Ms. Hartnett,
man,
with
much less
reference
any
to the
hair on the head of
Sneakers
John
and sort of
O'Keefe.
the other clothing items that you received, do you recall how or where or when it was that you received each of those respective clothing items? Or how the lab did, you know?
They were received by the lab from the Norfolk Detective Unit.
And as far as the sneakers being labeled with two different stickers, do you know why that was?
One of the sneakers was recovered from 34 Fairview Road, and one of the sneakers was recovered from the hospital.
Now, with reference to the photographs that I've just placed before you, have you had a chance to look at those?
These ones here?
Yes,
No.
if you could. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are the fingernail clippings that were submitted for John O'Keefe
And do you know where they were submitted from?
by the Norfolk County Detective Unit.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll call them up and see if introduce the minutes of next.
Okay.
By the way, thank you for everybody on Twitter or X. This is the second day I think I'm live streamed here. So thank you so much for joining me. Like I've said before, this is the first court that I've ever seen that they actually have the Madam Court Reporter
And Your Honor, with respect to
doing
each
the
of those, I'm not
evidence
going to publish those to the jury
documentation.
at this time.
documentation.
Court officer.
The lights back on, please.
Okay.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, with respect to those stains on the gray sweatshirt, the orange t-shirt, and the jeans, what, if any, testing was done with respect to those stains?
A screening test was performed on each of the Rembrandt stains on those items. I'm sorry, did you say the sneakers? Could you repeat what items you're speaking of?
With respect to each of those respective clothing items, what if
All of them.
testing was done with regard to any stains you observed on those items?
For the sweatshirt, the t-shirt, and the jeans, I saw visible red-brown stains, which I screened for blood. The majority were also, I also performed a confirmatory test for blood. There was one stain on the orange t-shirt. However, that was too small to perform that confirmatory test. So for that instance, I noted that the stain was quantity limited, and I preserved it after the positive screening test instead of performing a confirmatory test in order to preserve enough material for any DNA analysis. As far as the sneakers, given their dark color, I did not see any visible red-brown stains on the black area of the sneakers, so I used an alternate light source to aid in visualizing any potential blood on those sneakers. With that alternate light source, I tested several stains on the sneakers, one of which screened positive for blood.
Now, with respect to the other clothing items that you were talking about doing the screening test and the confirmatory test for blood, with respect to the gray sweatshirt, the orange t-shirt, and the jeans, what were the results of that screening test and that confirmatory test that you ran with regard to each of those?
The screening test and the confirmatory test were positive.
Now, beyond the stains, did you take any additional samples from those items?
Yes, I did.
And what were those and how was that done?
For each of the items, I picked up any loose trace material, which would be hairs and fibers or apparent hairs and fibers that were adhering to the item. I also did a scraping and swabbing for skin cell collection of the unstained areas, and that involves taking a sterile scalpel and swabbing the areas of the clothing that don't have any visible stains on them, and then taking 2 cotton swabs and swabbing that same area, and then combining those scrapings and swabs for potential DNA analysis. In addition to those, I also took a scraping of each of the materials, and that involves taking the item, using something like a flat metal spatula, and scraping down whatever adhering materials left on the item into a glassine packet.
And as far as those items, once they're collected from the material or from the clothing, what do you do with them from there?
Each of those items is given its own item number. It's a sub-item of the overall larger number used to mark the item, and those are sent to the appropriate units for additional testing.
And as far as preservation is concerned, when it comes to sending something to either the trace unit or the DNA unit, what, if any, steps are taken in regard to preserving those items once they're removed from the clothing and sent off to the other units?
Each of those items would be preserved according to protocol. They are sealed properly, initial and dated with my initials and date. They're entered into our LIMS system, so those sub-items could then be tracked throughout the laboratory, and they're stored in the appropriate storage unit.
Now, at some point, did you also receive items that were labeled as 3-2 and 3-3?
I submitted those when I returned from the original scene.
And what were those, ma'am?
Those were pieces of glass from the bumper and a drinking glass from the crime scene.
Now, did you examine those items?
Yes, I did.
And what, if any, examination did you do, and what is it that you were looking for in your examination?
I did a visual examination, and I took photographs, and then I also took a collection from each of the items.
And did you do any testing on those items?
No, I did not.
And what kind of samples did you collect from those items?
I took potential skin cell collection using a swab moistened with sterile water.
And as far as the samples that you took from, as well as the items themselves, what, if anything, did you do with reference to those once you were done with your examination?
The swabs were preserved for testing in the DNA unit, and the original items, the apparent pieces of glass and the drinking glass, were preserved for the trace unit.
And as far as those preservations were concerned, is that similar to the preservation process you were describing earlier with regard to the clothing items?
Yes, that's correct.
Good afternoon.
So both Ms. Lally and Ms. Harnett, you have to keep your voices up, or we have to turn the air conditioning on.
Understood, Your Honor. I may have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Can you get that, Matthew, one time? I got my hands full.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I don't have any further questions, Your
All
Honor.
right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ross is gonna be good,
When you
y'all.
responded to Canton Police Department, a lot of your testimony was about what happened in the Sally Port, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You were asked if you responded to the Canton Police Department on February 2nd, and most of your testimony was predicated on that date, you going over there and doing some visual observations, as well as some removal of items and some other testing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Was it February 2nd or was it February 1st?
May I check my notes?
I'd appreciate it if you did, yes.
Hey, y'all.
My apologies, that was my error. It was February 1st.
Okay, so everything that you testified to, you only went once.
Yes, that's correct.
So everything that you testified to having taken place on February 1st, we should assume it was actually on February 2nd, we should assume it was actually February 1st, the one time you were there.
Yes, I was there one time.
Okay. Were you dispatched to the Sally Port? And I apologize, I'm not yelling at you. I'm trying to keep my voice elevated, so just so you know.
Understood.
It's not my normal speaking voice. You were dispatched at the behest of one of the Massachusetts State Troopers, correct?
Yes,
Not
that's correct.
The
sponsored.
Detective Bureau specifically, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Trooper Proctor more specifically, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Be right back.
And Trooper Proctor, you knew at that time to be the lead detective, the person that was in control of the investigation.
May I check my notes who I wrote down as the lead investigator at that
If it
time?
would refresh your recollection, sure, with the court's permission.
Yes.
Yes, I was told on scene that Trooper Proctor was in charge of the investigation.
All right. Now, while you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to just do an overview of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Obviously, that was important given the limited information that you had at that time about a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
So you were looking for anything that would rise to a level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Hence your review and notation of certain scratches on the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes,
Which may or may not have anything to do with the incident, but you noted it anyway, correct?
I did not draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from.
Okay, you just took the words right out of my mouth. My next question, the dent that you noted and photographed, you made no conclusion that that occurred as a result of a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
The scratches, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them. The scratches that you denoted and had photographed, you made no conclusions about that having anything to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
Even the broken taillight, at that point, you made no conclusions or drew no scientific conclusions about that having anything at all to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
You did, however, look for tissue, human tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the car itself. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
In that review, I think you testified that you saw nothing that suggested the transfer of human tissue to the vehicle, correct?
I did not see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle.
You were told, Ms. Hartnett, that there were scratches on one of the extremities of John O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
Were you shown a photograph of those scratches to assist you in your visual review or examination of that vehicle?
Not at that time, no.
To this date, have you seen a photograph of his arm and the injuries to his arm?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, if I may, if we have it, could I display for the jurors and for Ms. Hartnett Exhibit 19?
Is this the one that's,
The arm
That's
that is-
covered a bit?
has been
okay,
propped,
yes.
Your Honor.
Yo, that's kind of interesting. Interesting point. Sorry. Wouldn't that be important for her to know?
Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 19?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of scratches previously, correct?
Yes, I've seen a photo containing
Okay,
something
and that's
similar.
consistent with the photo that you've seen since your visit to the Sally Port on February 1st, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Was there anything in your, by the way, did you look at all around the vehicle 360 degrees?
Yes, I did.
Did you look toward the top of the vehicle as well as toward the bottom of the vehicle?
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Say
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Understood. Did you examine the undercarriage of the vehicle?
I did look at the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And you know what I mean when I say undercarriage.
Yes.
Could you explain for the jurors what you mean when you use the word undercarriage?
The parts that normally you would have to see by, bending over or laying underneath the car to view what's underneath the vehicle.
That would include the frame and the axle and the drive shaft, transmission, things of that nature.
Yes, I'm not confident in all the terminology of the undercarriage, but yes.
Did you see anything that was suggestive of or consistent with the pattern of injury that you see to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
I wouldn't say I'm qualified to make any kind of pattern determination and what would match the injuries on his arm.
So the answer to my question is, as you sit here, you made no observation of anything on the SUV that matched these injuries, correct?
I wouldn't be.
Go ahead and answer that.
I wouldn't be able to testify from memory. I don't have a photograph of the undercarriage, nor did I make any kind of conclusions about that at the time.
Okay, understood. And you didn't take any, I'm sorry, the swabs and samples that you did take variously on the car all came back negative for human tissue, et cetera.
The testing that I did on scene from the various areas of the undercarriage, which I mentioned before, the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, and the exhaust pipe screened negative for blood.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, can we take this down?
Yes, I'm just going to suggest that. Thank you, Your Honor. On February 1st, 2002, in addition to taking some swabs from
That's
the vehicle
important,
itself, you
y'all.
also mentioned that you took swabs of what you believe to be blood evidence contained in 6 solo cups, correct?
Yes, I noted those as frozen red-brown stains in red cups.
Were those solo cups in any way labeled among themselves? In other words, solo cup 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't believe they were, but I don't have a photograph of that, so I'm not 100% sure.
You did not thereafter label those solo cups. If they hadn't been done beforehand, you did not undertake that to label those solo cups, correct?
No, I did not label them.
Did you, how did you take those swabs? Was the swab done in one solo cup, or did you take a swab from all 6, or how did you take those swabs that you ultimately did take?
I took those swabs from one solo cup.
What?
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups you were going to take a swab from?
I don't recall exactly how I chose which cup. It was reported to me that those cups came from the same area of red-brown staining, so I assume, you make an assumption that they're all related.
What?
It came from-
You take
from what
them
I was told,
all.
It came from one area of red-brown stain at the scene.
And you,
Yeah,
of
but there
course,
could have
know
been 2 people bleeding.
that blood stains can contain multiple contributors, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You don't know, as you sit here, which blood stain found at the scene related to which solo cup in the bag, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, it was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain, but I was not there.
From the same scene or,
Stain, excuse me. It was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain.
okay. If they in fact were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing that as you sit here.
That's correct.
And ultimately, once you did take that swab from that single solo cup, what did you do with the rest of that blood evidence?
I left that with the Canton Police Department.
Was there any of the swab? By the way, I should ask this. I've been saying swabs. Was there one swab taken of that one solo from that one solo cup, or were there multiple swabs taken?
There were 2 swabs taken.
Of those 2 swabs, did you seek to do DNA testing, or was DNA testing done on either one of those or both of them?
DNA testing was not done on those swabs.
So as we sit here now, there's been no DNA confirmation of who that blood relates to, I should say.
There was no testing done on it at all.
And so therefore, we would not know if there were multiple contributors to those stains or that swab that you took from that.
Wow.
That's correct.
And again, the remainder
Oh my gosh,
of
y'all.
that solo cup, as well as all the other 5 solo cups, was retained by Canton Police at the Canton Police Department in the control of the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, correct?
I don't know who was in control of it once I returned it to the Canton Police Department.
Who did you return it to at the Canton Police Department? Whom, I should say.
I believe I gave it to a Canton police officer. I don't know which officer that was.
Michael Proctor was at the Sally Port at the time that you were doing your examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did he not take control of it himself?
Not that I saw. I don't know who took control of them once I was done with my
You
collection.
may have, you just don't know.
Correct.
Wow, y'all.
Going back to some of the damage that you did note on the vehicle, that vehicle looked like it had been driven to a certain degree, right?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
I'm not. If you could clarify the question, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Terrible question. Let me try it again. That vehicle was not a vehicle that had clearly just come off the showroom floor and had not been in use, based on your examination.
I don't think I am qualified to make that kind of decision.
It looked like there was some normal wear and tear on the car.
Other than the specific items that I pointed out earlier, the dent and the scratches, the exterior was in overall good condition. So I can't say specifically if it was driven other. I don't think I can make that conclusion unless you want to rephrase the question.
You didn't have any reason to believe that car was in any other condition than it had been owned and driven by somebody, right? Or could
In
you
other
make that
words,
conclusion?
it was not
I
brand
don't
new
think I can
off
make
the
that
car lot.
conclusion.
So it could have been an absolutely brand new, right off the showroom floor car?
I guess I don't have any understanding of what could have happened to it in the showroom. I'm not sure I understand the line of
Oh,
questioning.
you don't
Why
want to
don't we
answer
move
this.
Fair enough.
I know I'm eating y'all,
guess
but
what
I
I'm
got to do
asking
it.
Is, did you've done some damage analysis in the past, obviously. This was not.
You don't want to answer this.
I don't do damage analysis of some vehicles.
Okay. Did this car look like it had reasonably normal wear and tear on it? That's my question.
I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
Okay.
Wow.
Ultimately, the right rear taillight housing was removed, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you the person, Ms. Hartnett, who actually used the tools to remove that taillight, be it screwdrivers, wrenches, anything else?
No,
Who was that actually did that work?
it was a Canton police officer that had entered the garage, and as I was removing it, he offered to help. He said he knew how to basically take it out of the housing, which at that point, I was not sure how I would do that.
Okay. I'd like to show you an exhibit that you'd been shown just a few minutes ago before the lunch break, 187 with the court's permission.
Okay.
Does that look like the same housing that you removed from the SUV, or you saw being removed from the SUV?
Yes, that is the taillight housing that I submitted to the lab from the garage.
Ultimately, there was a swab taken, you mentioned on direct examination, of that taillight somewhere on the house, correct?
Yes, I took a swab from that taillight.
Where exactly did you take that swab from?
I took it from the outer exposed areas, which would have been on the outer side of the vehicle. So I did not take it from the internal, what would have been the internal portion of the taillight when it was intact.
Can you point with a laser pointer exactly where you swabbed that taillight housing?
Sure. Is there a way that, can it get zoomed in just a little bit so I can differentiate the silver in the front? I'm having a little trouble.
Is that zoomed in enough or do you need more?
I believe so. I can start. So I took it from the red area here that would have been exposed. And then if we could zoom in a little bit more just on this front area so I can differentiate between the internal structures and the external.
Was it one swab?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you swabbed multiple areas with one swab and then submitted that.
Yes.
So you don't know as you sit here where, if any DNA was detected, where that DNA may have come from,
No, that's correct.
other than the general housing altogether.
Yes. So then just to finish the previous question, I
I'm
did.
sorry, I didn't even.
That's okay. It was just I couldn't see it. So this area here, which would have been the external portion of the tail light. So the areas I did not swab were any areas that would have, when the tail light was intact, been protected by the outer plastic housing of the tail light.
Is your testimony, Ms. Hartnett, that what you just pointed to was the exterior portion of the tail at bottom left?
No, just this piece of plastic here is the exterior, the exterior piece of plastic.
And you swabbed that area as well as other areas on the exterior, like the red upper right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. As you swab that, the DNA test does not differentiate where you swab, just that you swab, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That was all one swab, one collection.
Got it. So we can't define whether the DNA was to the upper right, on the outside of the lens, or some other place that you pointed to.
That's correct.
And of course, you're familiar with touch DNA, et cetera, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Touch an item, walk away, sweaty palms. Good likelihood I just left some DNA on this podium, correct?
Yes, you can transfer skin cells by touching an item.
Thank you. We can take that down with the court's permission. Sure. You also indicated that you collected glass from the rear bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus, correct?
Yes, I have it as a parent class, but yes.
As a parent glass, fair enough. You labeled that as item 3-3, and it was 5 pieces of glass labeled A through E, right? A, B, C, D, E. Is that
May I look at, may I refer to my notes?
with the court's permission?
Yes.
I'm just unfamiliar with the lettering A through E. I don't believe I have that in my notes. If you could refer to the
Is it
document that you have.
is it possible that, and this is just ignorance on my part, is it possible that once you submitted that for further testing, somebody else may have labeled those individual pieces A through E? You did not?
That's possible. I do not label them A through E.
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you for that clarification. As a matter of fact, you labeled it as quantity 1, correct? On an evidence submission form?
In the limb system, that's correct. Each item is, that quantity value is only used for specific things. So when I submit something as one item, it doesn't matter how many pieces it actually is. It's just, I'm submitting it as one item.
So in other words, one group.
That's correct.
But it's, so we're clear, and I want to make sure that these numbers are crystal clear. In that group, under 3-3, there were 5 pieces of apparent glass that you recovered, correct?
I don't have the exact number in my notes, and honestly, it's difficult to tell from my picture, so I don't want to say that I saw 5 pieces of glass.
Did you not annotate that somewhere, that you recovered 5 pieces?
Again, I have a photograph of it, but it's difficult to see on this printed page. So I didn't specifically write 5 pieces anywhere.
Okay, well, okay, then let me see if I can do it this way. Instead of pitching, let's catch. The person that you submitted it to would have annotated exactly what the grouping was that you submitted to try to be accurate.
I'm the one that
Hey,
initially, excuse me, after the item was sent to fingerprinting, then I examined the item, but I didn't write down exactly how many pieces of glass were present. I just took a photo.
And as you sit here, you don't recall necessarily how many pieces you took off that bumper.
Correct. And the quality of the photo does not allow me to see that at this point.
Okay, let's take a look at that photo. With the court's permission, this is exhibit 168. Can we
Okay.
show that?
I'm sorry I had to step away for a moment. Hey, did Ronnie, talk about the glass that they drank from?
And if we could, Mr. Bates, with the court's permission, you can zoom in on the area. It's a little bit bigger than that. Capture all of the plaques. Zooming in at this point, and I would ask you, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize this photo? It's zoomed a little bit. Do you still recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Is that a photograph that you caused to be taken at the Sally Port on February 1st, 2022?
I believe it was February 2nd, right? Did we, or it's February 1st now? We agreed it's February 1st. My apologies.
Okay.
Yes, on February 1st, I did request that photo be taken of the apparent pieces of glass.
Okay, and can you, I know you can't see necessarily every piece. Can you use your laser pointer and point to a piece?
Sure.
Okay, got it. So that's the largest of the pieces, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's correct that none of these pieces of apparent glass were embedded in the bumper. They weren't dug in, stuck into that hard plastic, correct?
No, I do not have that. I do not have that notation that they were embedded, just they were on the bumper.
As a matter of fact, they were physically perched on top of that hard plastic horizontal bumper, correct?
To my recollection, they were just sitting on the bumper, yes.
Okay. And do you know, just in your experience, and if we could leave this up for just a moment while I ask the next couple of questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do you know where Dighton, Massachusetts is?
I know the general area.
How far would you say that is from Canton?
I don't know, maybe a half an hour. I'm not exactly sure.
Do your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dighton and towed back to Canton and placed in the Sally Port before you started your examination?
Y'all,
Yes.
y'all.
So if
Yeah.
and you also had been,
Whoa. Light bulb just went off. Light bulb. I hope he goes here. I got a light bulb. I got to share it. Okay. Sorry about that. I should have done that. Got a light bulb. You ready? Here's the light bulb. I've been around a lot of tow trucks, and they are around a lot of broken glass and a lot of debris from other vehicles. And I remember having a minor fender bender, but blew a tire and all that, so they towed my car. When I got my car back, there were pieces of glass in the floorboard of my car, and I had no broken windows. What if it wasn't placed there by the PD, which is always an issue here? They're claiming it's a frame up. But let's play devil's advocate. What if the PD didn't place it there, but it came from the straps and just being on the flatbed where they towed it? Just a thought. Let's see if he goes there.
apprised before you began your examination that the incident in question took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew as you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, the vehicle had to have been driven by definition from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton back to Canton, correct?
I was informed that the car was recovered in Dighton.
And ultimately either driven back or towed back. One of the ways, some way it ended up back in Canton, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if Dighton is, how far would you say Dighton is from Canton?
Again, I'm really guessing. I would say maybe a half an hour.
30 miles?
Potentially. I don't know exactly. I was never in Dighton.
Okay, so according to your notes, the glass pieces that we're looking at on the back of this bumper would have traveled, let's call it for round figures, about 60 miles in a blizzard before you saw it.
I don't know when the glass pieces were ended up on the bumper, so I couldn't say.
And of course, you knew that on February 1st, you knew a few days earlier, on the 29th, there had been a pretty significant snowstorm here in Massachusetts, correct?
Yes, I did have that information.
And that blizzard included high winds, freezing rain, snow, all the good stuff with a blizzard, correct?
I don't recall the exact weather conditions of the blizzard.
But irrespective, after all of that, whatever that was, you saw these 5 pieces just sitting perched on the top of the bumper, not embedded in any way, correct?
That's correct.
And you recovered those with little bitty tweezers, correct?
Yes.
Y'all, something fishy going on around here.
You testified on direct examination that you also found a hair on that rear panel, the quarter panel of the car, correct?
Yes. At the time of the scene, I noted it was an apparent hair. Correct.
And the apparent hair, and I'll try and use that same word, I keep forgetting, you'll correct me. That apparent hair was not sitting on the horizontal bumper, but on a vertical portion of the quarter panel, correct?
That's correct.
Did you find the hair, or was that hair pointed out to you by somebody else?
I believe I located the hair.
How exactly was that hair secured to that vertical panel?
Lifted it and found it
You
are
can
two
explain
different
that.
things. She didn't answer the
It didn't appear to
question.
be secured in any way. It was just on that quarter panel.
Okay, so it wasn't taped,
No.
it wasn't glued?
No.
Wasn't stapled?
No.
It was not affixed in any way whatsoever. It was just perched on that.
Wasn't
vertical
there
panel of the
female
SUV, correct?
That's correct.
officer moving
for you to
around those
remove it-
vehicles? That could have fallen from her
And by
head
the way, this is,
and
you
landed
found
on
this
the
at the
car.
same time that you found the general time, that you found the glass pieces as well.
That's correct.
So that hair potentially would have had to make that same 60-mile round trip in the same blizzard.
At the time, I don't know when that hair was deposited on the vehicle.
Right.
You don't.
And it didn't take
Point.
much to remove that hair, correct?
I picked it up with a pair of tweezers.
It didn't give you any resistance.
Not that I recall.
I'd like to take a look at that hair if we can. I know you've seen it just a few minutes ago. I want to look at it one more time. With the court's permission, these are exhibits 165 and 173. If we could start with 165 and publish those.
Okay.
Does that look like a close-up view of, actually, is that Zoom? Yeah. Can we pull that out? Your Honor, may I do this a different way?
All right.
This is actually, with the court's permission,
Please tell me you have the hair there. Do you actually have the evidence of the hair? Where is the glass fragments? Where is the physical evidence? I want to see baggies with physical evidence. This is the first time I've never, other than them pulling up one glass during the day, at the very beginning, we are relying everything solely on photos, and that bothers me.
Yes.
thank you.
That bothers me, y'all.
I may hand you those very briefly. Could you take a look at those 4 photographs and tell me if you recognize the first 2 to be exhibits 165 and 173? They're not marked on there, but what you earlier looked at.
Okay.
Do those appear to be those 2 exhibits that you earlier saw?
Yes, I don't know what numbers they were, but I do remember seeing these photos earlier.
Fair enough. And then the second 2 photos, do those appear to be zoomed photos of the same 2 photographs?
Yes, they do.
With the court's permission, I would ask that the zoomed photos be marked as next in order.
Is there any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Careful there. Mr. Lally. Nice to see you, Ronnie. I wonder where everybody disappeared to.
Thank you.
Where's my gang? I'm missing them.
May I?
I'm happy you're here.
Yes.
All right, we're looking at what's previously been marked as 165. Does that appear to be a photo of the hair?
Would it be possible just to zoom in on that,
Absolutely.
the
This is not
sticker?
an eye contest.
And just a little bit, I'm just trying to read the letter on the white marker. Yes, so that, correct.
So that hair looks, as we're looking at it, you will agree, that hair looks like almost like a backward C, correct? In other words, it looks like it's more vertical than flat in that photograph.
There.
I would agree it looks like a C on the side of the car.
If we could go to exhibit
That was not
173.
3 to 4 inches. I'm sorry. That's a short hair.
And this is the
But it could have
same-
been anybody walking around the car. Could have been the guy that picked up the car and towed the car.
If we could, again, just zoom in on that sticker.
You cannot claim that as
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Hartnett, does it look to you
it's gray.
like between the first and the second photographs, that hair has moved? It's no longer an inverted C, but a C.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I see the two ends, which may still be making contact with the vehicle. I can't make that determination based
I'll
on
look
this
at it again.
photo.
Put them side by side.
So that was sort of my next question. I'll just dovetail it this way. Did it appear to you that the hair, which is curled, was making contact with the vehicle on the top point and the bottom point?
I would say from this photo, I honestly can't tell if those two ends are coming off the vehicle or touching the vehicle. I
And
just
they're
can't
gray
make that
hair.
determination.
But you would agree that that hair was somewhat precariously perched on that.
It could have been
vertical
his,
quarter
but-
panel, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Ask it differently.
We can, Mr. Bates, we're finished with that. With the court's permission, we can take that down. If you take a look at the zoomed photos that have just been marked as 259 and 260 respectively, can you take a look at those side by side? And when you're finished, I'd like to ask you a question or two about those.
Okay.
Does it look from your perspective, seeing those photos side by side, that the hair appears to have gently moved just a little bit between the two photos?
Put them up side by side.
I just don't think I can make that determination. They're taken from different angles. I just don't know. I can see that they have
They
a curl
didn't
in
do
both,
any
but I don't
DNA
know which
results on the
ends
hair,
are making
y'all.
contact or if the ends are coming off the vehicle.
Just say it.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. There's one more exhibit I'd like to take a quick look at and ask you a couple of questions about. With the court's permission, exhibit 195, which is a shirt.
Okay.
Y'all, I'm going to do something. Don't get mad at me.
Ms. Hartnett, does it look to you like between the
Okay. We're going to skim back just a second. There we go. I want to show y'all something.
Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes, I do.
And you saw this just a few minutes ago on direct examination as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You indicated that you took two swabs from the, quote, area around damage, numbers 1 through 9 of the gray sweatshirt, end quote, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, can you describe for the jurors how you took those swabs, and were they of all 9 or a select number of the 9? How did you do that?
I moistened 2 cotton swabs with sterile water, and then I took those 2 swabs. May I use the pointer to just show?
Of course.
And I vigorously swabbed around. I don't know if it's working. There we go. This entire area. So every area of damage, I swabbed around all of it using the same 2 swabs. So it was one collection from all those areas.
one collection on swab 1 and one collection on swab 2. You just repeated the process.
No, I took them exactly at the same time. So I held the two swabs together.
Oh.
And as I'm swabbing, I'm rotating the swabs to make sure that all the exterior of the swab is coming into contact with that material in order to collect equal samples, or at least attempt to collect equal samples on each swab.
Okay, we can take that. Thank you. And you indicated that this was the first time that you had done swabbing specifically for the purpose of trying to find either canine DNA or animal DNA.
That's correct.
Had you been trained at the time that you took the swabs, had you been trained or received any training or any teaching about the relationship between keratinized tissue and DNA?
No,
Do you know what keratinized tissue is?
no.
Did you photograph exactly where any of those swabs were taken, or just notate it in your notes?
I notated in my notes that overall photo is the photo that I used to describe the sample that I collected.
And I think it probably goes without saying, you didn't videotape your swabbing technique on that shirt either, correct?
That's correct.
You did include a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from T-shirt 717 and shirt 718, correct?
I got you guys. I want you to see this before. Okay, I want you to see this. He made a good point. You ready? All right, y'all see this? I'm going to put it up big. I'll just fill the screen with it. Let's see if I can make it bigger. He's right. Look, that's a big change. Look at this here. And the hair curls this way here. But this is not, see the circle here? The circle here? The mess up here? They can't say it's inverted. It's not an inverted image. Guys, I used to be a photo restorationist. I used to do digital photos. I've had Photoshop since the day they started. And I can tell you that that piece of hair there is not in the same position as it is here. Y'all, he nailed it. I hope the jury saw it. I hope. I'll go to Discord. Okay, let me get this back up and we'll keep moving. Took me a minute to set it up. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thanks for telling me. That's horrible.
Scrapings from both shirts. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And then combined those together and submitted that as the quote unquote debris that was assigned a new item number 7-18.18, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So as you sit here, you don't know where the debris came from specifically, other than the two shirts. Could be one, could be the other, could have been a combination of both.
Yes, that's correct.
You separate them, my dear.
Did you describe in detail anywhere the actual debris that you found? Little fibers, little hairs, little pieces of green or blue?
Okay,
or
now you're
whatever?
screwing up.
If I was able to pick out a hair or a fiber, I would have attempted to do that from the debris collection. The debris collection was just anything that was left on the item that I was not able to pick off.
Okay. And you did not note any debris item that was plastic or plasticine, anything like that, correct?
No, I did not make any kind of observations on the debris itself.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered, correct?
That's correct.
And there was no photograph taken of the debris,
That's correct.
and there was no videotape of the debris collection.
Correct.
Um,
How can you be so thorough over here and so relaxed over there?
when you
I'm sorry, I'm
received
loud.
item
How can you be?
717 and item 718, that came in one evidence bag, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Your Honor, may I approach briefly? Yes. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at that, that's a photograph. I'd ask you
I
to
am so
review and
struggling
tell me
here,
if you
y'all.
recognize it. Not the photograph, but what's depicted in the photograph.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize that?
This is the container that contained it's a photo of the brown paper bag that contained the long sleeve gray shirt as well as the orange t-shirt.
May I approach, Your Honor? Yes.
Did you process the bag?
I could ask that be marked as next in order.
Any objections to Lally?
No, Your Honor.
I'm going to know, did you process the bag on the inside for any debris that could have fallen off of the clothing?
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did you compare the hair found on the vehicle to the hair on the head of John O'Keefe? Or anybody
This
else
evidence
for that
bag
matter?
notes, let me start over. This evidence bag is in the condition that it was in when you received it, meaning the writing on the bag was already there when you received it.
Yes, that's correct.
And it notes that these items of evidence were collected by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the date of collection was January 29, 2022, is that right?
I'd have to relook at that
Of course.
for the date.
May I approach? Yes.
Yes, it didn't.
Display
So you got an answer.
My
Right, I think-
apologies.
my mistake.
The date on there is January 29th, 2022.
So I don't have to walk back and forth, may I?
Yes.
22 or 11? I mean, 21.
Okay, does that look like what you're looking at?
22,
Exhibit
29?
261?
That's correct.
Thank you. See if I can stand out of the way. You see Trooper Proctor's name on the evidence bag as the person that collected it.
Yes, that's correct.
And it also has a description of what's in the bag, and it shows both the orange t-shirt and the gray sweatshirt collected together and bagged together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the date, again, once again, on the upper right is January 20.
Okay, I'm going to have to pause this. I'm trying to get a screenshot of this and it's not letting me. Okay.
2022, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay. You
How
have
would you
no-
bag it all together?
knowing as you sit here the journey that those two items of evidence took before they got to you in your lab, correct?
yes. They're tracked as soon as they're entered into our laboratory system by us.
I didn't hear any of that. I'm so
My
sorry.
apologies. The item would be tracked as soon as it's submitted to our lab by us, by the crime lab.
Thank you. We can take this down, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, it's up here on cross. Oh, snap it. You're right.
The debris that you ultimately got from the shirt or shirts,
Thank
you don't
you.
know if that debris may have been in the bag and the shirts picked up the debris in the bag or otherwise, correct?
Correct.
Because they were housed together,
Yes,
stored together.
that's correct.
Were you aware before you began your analysis on either one of those shirts that those shirts had been found at the bottom of an ambulance, on the floor of an ambulance at one point?
I don't have any knowledge of where the clothing, what condition the clothing in was before I got it.
Okay, and that probably answers my next question, but just for the record, you don't have any knowledge personally as you sit here that either one of the shirts or both of them were floor of a hospital room as well.
I have no information about where the shirts were.
One of the things that you did indicate was, in your direct examination, was how important it is to maintain sanitary conditions with evidence to avoid contamination, correct?
That's correct.
Correct?
For instance, you wouldn't want to take the swabs that you so carefully utilized to swab an item of evidence and then, oops, drop it on the floor. You would have to discard that item and then start over, correct?
If a swab is dropped on the floor, we don't discard it. We would preserve it, but that would be a note that we would have to put in our file, and that, yes, that swab would not be tested any further.
Right, because of the possibility of cross-contamination.
Correct.
Correct.
And at least according to the evidence bag, those two shirts were in the custody and control of which trooper before you got them?
Trooper Proctor collected the evidence according to the bag.
Thank you. Ultimately, Ms. Hartnett, every single piece of taillight material and clothing that you've described in your testimony today on direct and cross-examination, all of that evidence was presented to you or to the lab at one time in one bundle on March 14th, 2022, correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Which portion was in the lab before March 14th?
The tail light that I collected from the vehicle was submitted prior to that, as well as any other items that I took from the vehicle.
Okay, that was a great answer and my mistake. I knew that and I forgot it. So the taillight housing you took on the first?
Correct.
Okay. Every other item other than the taillight housing itself, which you took personal possession of, all the taillight fragments, all the clothing, orange shirt, gray shirt, jeans, shoes, everything was all submitted in one fell swoop on March 14th, 2022. Is that right?
No.
What else am I incorrect about?
So I just wanted to clear anything that was collected from the vehicle, as well as the swabs from the red Solo cups and the drinking glass that I was presented with at Canton PD, was submitted by me on February 1st. The other items, the clothing items, were submitted together. And then there was another submission that had the fingernails and the known blood standards. So there were several submissions. So I'm hesitant to lump it all into one because it did happen on different dates.
Okay, fair enough. Can we agree that the earliest submission, with the exception of the stuff that you actually took with you from the Sally Port?
So the clothing, the tennis shoe.
The taillight housing and whatever swabs you took. All of the other material that was submitted to the lab, all of the other evidence. The earliest date anything was submitted was March 14th, 2022.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to take another look at my submission forms just to clarify.
May I approach?
Yes.
I think I have it. It's a
Okay.
two-page document, if I can show Mr. Lally.
Yeah, that's suspicious. Why didn't they send everything with her
Submission form?
when she came
Yes, it is.
Okay.
to the Sally Port? They had it.
If you could familiarize yourself with that for just a quick second.
Yes.
I can't believe the way that she treated the Sally cups. That was inappropriate. They should have swabbed every cup twice. She should have labeled each cup so she knew which cup it came from. What? And she really didn't even send anything off for testing from the Sally cup. It could have had two different blood types in that thing. She doesn't know. But she says they told her it was from the same collection of the same stain. But I wouldn't trust them.
I have one more document I'm going to ask you to take a glance at.
Okay.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
What is that document? The second document that I just handed?
This is a printed chain of custody report from our laboratory information management system.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to mark the first document's name again. I want to get it right.
It's the evidence submission form for submission 7.
Evidence submission form for submission 7, two-page document, if I could have that marked next in order. And then the,
Chain of custody. My apologies.
Is there an objection, Mr. Lally?
Yes, to both.
So the objection sustained unless you want to convince me otherwise.
I'll have a mark for ID for
Okay.
the time being. That's fine. If that's okay with the court.
Yes.
You're not going to argue it? There's an objection and you're not arguing your objection? Why? Why are you objecting then? That don't make sense to me. It makes me kind of go, Someone asked, what am I doing? Hey, CG and Tex. I am beading. It starts off looking like this, and it ends up looking like that. And I got 10 of these
You've
to
got
do.
a lot of your Post-its on the other one. Do you want to take it off?
I was gonna actually ask if I think it would help with this.
Okay.
Go a lot faster with those Post-its on.
The
Oh, yeah, Judge, I was going to ask that.
Back to the
Mhm.
witness with the.
Just waiting for her to put a number on it.
If you could
I
take
was
a
waiting for the
look
witness to see it.
at what's been marked as VV, that's the log. I just want to go through this relatively quickly. With regard
Y'all
to
please share. We are
pieces
almost
that were
at 200 live
submitted, if you look on
viewers
page,
right
for
now.
instance, Page 11,
Please
where tab
share.
is.
Yep.
That shows that that piece was submitted on March 14th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was a piece submitted on March 14th on page, notated on page 12.
What item are you referring to?
It's a plastic piece.
Yes, correct.
Page 13, another plastic piece.
Yes, submitted on March 14th.
And page 14, another plastic piece.
Yes, that's correct.
Page 15,
How many?
another plastic piece.
Correct.
And page 17.
Sorry.
I wonder if Karen Reed really knows how good
Yes, that's
he's
correct.
doing
And then
the
if you turn
job.
to the next page, page 18, that's the orange T-shirt. It shows its submission date, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's that date?
March 14th.
And then on the bottom, very bottom of page 20, going into page 21, there's another item, the gray T-shirt or gray sweatshirt.
Yes, that was also submitted on March 14th.
Okay, thank you. I may approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we need those. They're marked for identification.
I'm not sure if I'm going to use it one more time.
Put them up on the bench and you can grab them.
Of course, may I?
Yes.
Ooh, Judge being a little snippy. Yo, my cuticles are going to look really bad for the next 2 months because this thread tears up my fingers. I mean, look. See, that thread does that. It's called beating cuticles. Three down,
You are unmuted.
8 more to go.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that, I have no further questions.
All right. All right, Ms. Hartnett, you are all set. Thank you.
Ooh, finally. Let's get some fresh blood up there.
All right, your next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth call Ms. Ashley Valaire to the stand.
Really?
Step right up here, just watch your step for me. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence given in court and jury in the case that we're hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
So, Mr. Lally, would you remove good afternoon, would you remove the exhibit that's on the witness stand,
Yes, Your Honor.
please?
Another Massachusetts state PD Crime Lab. We're going to do this all day?
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your
Oh,
last
she's
name?
a cutie.
My name is Ashley Valier, spelled Vallier.
Oh, that's not how we have it here.
Ms. Valier,
Now,
what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
All right, so Mix Villar, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up.
Okay.
What we've been doing is we've had to turn the air conditioning off and we can't hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
we don't want to turn off the
Mr.
AC.
How long have you been employed at the State Police Crime?
Just over 5 years.
And if I could ask you just a little bit about your educational background, starting with your undergraduate work, where did you go to school for that?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry and cell biology from University of California, San Diego.
And following your receipt of that degree, where did you go from there?
I have a Master of Science degree in biomedical forensic sciences from Boston University.
Wow.
And, once you received that master's, where did you go to work after that?
I worked at the Broad Institute for about 6 months before getting a job at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
As far as your work at the Broad Institute, that's located in Cambridge, is that correct?
Correct.
And what type of work did you do at the Broad Institute?
I worked for the Center for the Development of Therapeutics department, doing quality control checks on compounds that they think could have potential to be therapeutic drugs.
And so you went to work for the Mass State Police Crime Lab, or the MSPCL, in early 2019, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you first went to work for the MSPCL, what unit were you initially assigned to?
The Trace Arson and Explosives Unit.
Is that the unit that you still currently work in?
It is.
And so you started with the lab as a forensic scientist one, is that correct?
Correct.
And so what sort of steps or what kind of training did you go through in order to go from being a forensic scientist one to being a forensic scientist two that you are?
Hiya
Forensic
there.
Scientist One,
How are you?
is
Thank you for
the
joining.
initial job that you're hired as. After
Oh.
you've been at the lab for a year, and once you're qualified and signed off to do casework,
Do the YouTube
you
thing.
become a forensic
Comment,
scientist
like,
too.
and subscribe.
Now,
Same
within the trace
with that.
unit, can you describe to the jury sort of what types of things you're looking at, or what types of analysis that you do with regard to working in the trace unit specifically?
What I do or what the unit does.
First, as far as in general terms, what is a unit?
The unit has a lot of disciplines. So there's fire debris examination, explosives examination, serial number restoration, gunshot residue analysis, fibers, paint, glass, physical match, trace recovery.
And specific to yourself, what is it that you do within the trace?
I do gunshot residue analysis, trace recovery, and physical match analysis.
And as far as each of those respective categories, is those the things that you've done essentially your time there, especially as a forensic scientist too?
Yes.
Now, with regard to
Monty's great.
as far as the physical match component that you were talking about, can you explain to the jury just again in general?
And he's
terms
just
sort of
now
what goes
joining
into
us?
that, or what are you looking at? What are you doing in regard to your analysis with that?
Physical match analysis is looking at two or more items that have broken or irregular edges, and seeing if they fit together like a sort of like
You
a jigsaw puzzle.
reconstructed the tail light.
And when you're doing those examination of various items with respect to that, what types of instruments are you using, or what types of ways are you looking at these from an instrumental perspective?
It's mostly the stereo zoom microscope, which is a microscope that's mounted on a stand, so that it can look at larger objects and not just slides like in science class.
Now, over the course of your work with the lab, you're familiar with the lab is accredited, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's accredited by an organization.
do it,
called
y'all.
ANAP.
Correct.
And with respect to that accreditation, what if any testing or what if any examinations or continuing education do you have to undergo in order for that accreditation, either for yourself or for the lab itself?
As part of the accreditation, analysts that are signed up to do casework do proficiency tests every year.
And have you done proficiency testing over the course of your 5 years with the lab?
I have.
And specifically, what types of areas?
Hey, cowgirl Ronnie, can you hear my fan blowing?
I've taken proficiency tests in gunshot residue analysis and physical match cases.
So with respect to sort of each of the various areas of work that you do within the lab, is that correct?
Except for trace recovery, but yes.
And with respect to each of those, as far as the proficiency testing was concerned, you successfully completed each of those?
I have.
Thank you.
Now, if I could turn your attention to, at some point over the course of your work within the trace unit in the lab, did you become involved with the lab case number 22-02184?
I did.
And there's a name that's associated with that lab number as well, is that correct?
A name?
A name as far as a suspect or a defendant or something like that?
Yes.
And whose name is that?
Karen Reed.
And as far as your work within the trace unit, how is it that you came to be involved, or what piece of analysis did you become initially involved in with respect to Ms. Reed's case?
I was assigned to do physical match analysis on, well, many different items.
Before we get to the physical match, was there something, what if anything were you asked to do with regard to some clothing items associated with the John O'Keefe?
I believe I later received debris that was collected from those clothing items.
And so debris specifically, do you recall which clothing items you received debris from?
I do not without looking at my notes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may the witness look at her notes?
Yes, go right ahead.
Sorry about the fire truck, y'all.
And is your memory refreshed as to which items of clothing you looked at?
Yes, so it was, well, I didn't look at clothing. I just received the debris that was already packaged. So it was labeled as coming from jeans, boxer shorts, sneakers, a gray long sleeve shirt, and an orange t-shirt.
Now, with respect to each of those items had a lab sort of label number associated with it, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it your understanding that the larger piece of clothing would have been labeled 7-something, and then the debris from that clothing would have been labeled 7- same thing, point whatever? Does that sound familiar?
It does, yes.
And so with specific reference to item 7-18.18, that was debris from an orange t-shirt, is that correct?
Yes,
And specifically, I'm sorry, debris from an orange t-shirt and a gray long sleeve shirt, correct?
correct.
And from your analysis of that debris, what if any examination did you do of that debris that was provided to you within the trace?
So each of these items was packaged in a fold. And so I opened up the fold and looked at the items under the stereo zoom microscope and documented it with photos.
And as far as that item 7-18.18, what if anything did you observe as far as contained within the debris from that item specifically?
May I look at my notes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. There was apparent dirt debris, many black, gray, blue, and orange apparent fibers, several pieces of red apparent plastic, several apparent hairs, one piece of green material, and one piece of clear apparent plastic.
And the clear apparent plastic, what if any measurements did you conduct with reference to that?
It measured approximately 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 an inch of an inch.
Now, from your analysis of those items, what, if anything, do you know where within the lab they went following your analysis there?
I believe another analyst in the trace unit then looked at those items.
And that would be are you familiar with another person who works in the trace unit named Christina Hanley?
I am.
And so what, if any, training does Ms. Hanley have that you do not have in order to conduct that sort of further analysis?
So Christina Hanley is the trace supervisor, and she is signed off to do casework in fibers, miscellaneous paint, glass. I see the other trace disciplines that I am not.
Yep, and she'll be our next witness.
Contained within that debris were something that you examined microscopically, made observations of, took measurements, and then they went to Ms. Hanley?
Correct.
Now, with respect to, you mentioned a variety of plastic items that you examined, correct?
Of the initial items that I looked at?
Yes.
Yes.
And what were those, generally speaking, what were those initial items that you looked at?
Sarah?
Many different items containing that I believe were recovered from an address, but I would have to look at my notes to.
Go ahead.
So they were all labeled as as recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
And what types of items were they specifically that you had received?
So it was many pieces of apparent plastic and apparent glass and one drinking straw.
And those items were generally labeled as items 7-5 through 7-19. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
And with reference to the process in general terms of when you receive these items, can you explain to the jury sort of your process and what you did and what you looked at as you went through each of these respective items?
Sure. So for beginning a physical match case, you always look at the questioned items first, which are the ones that you don't know where it came from. Like here, they're labeled as coming from the road, so you don't know where their actual source of origin is. And so what we'll do is we'll scan that item into my custody. And then I will document the packaging with photographs. And then I'll open that item and then document that item as it is. And if there are multiple pieces, each piece will get a designator like piece A, piece B, piece C. All this gets documented, written down in my notes and in photographs. If any of those pieces look like they could possibly fit together, then I will look under the stereo zoom and see if they do in fact fit together, and document it if they do. And then once I've finished documenting that, I'll repackage it in the original packaging. And then if there are multiple items, like in this case there were, then once that first item is sealed up, then I'll clean my bench and then I'll open the second item and do the same thing until all of the items have been documented.
And again, if you could describe to the jury sort of the physical process of what you did in this case with respect to these items, as far as how were you looking at them sort of physically, what did you do with those items?
So like I said, I opened up each of these items individually, took photos, took notes, looked at them under the stereo zoom microscope, and then looked at my photos after I had looked at all of them. They'd all been packaged in their original packaging. And then I looked at the photographs to see if any of those pieces could possibly fit together. And then once I looked at the photos and saw that it looked like there were possible physical match fits among those questioned items, then I opened up those items and looked to see if they, like in real life versus just on photos, see if they could have a potential physical match. And then if it looked like it did, then I brought them together and looked at that in the CRE Zoom to confirm if there was a physical match.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Maud, I'll be right back. Thanks, Ronnie, for holding down the fort. Thank you, CG and Tex. Welcome, Adair. Appreciate you. I'll be right back.
This way I'm showing you a series of 9 photographs. Just ask you to look at those and help me finish. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Item 7-5.
And is that how it was presented to you or shown to you as far as the evidence bag that you opened and the items that were contained within?
I mean, this is just a picture of the seal, not the entire bag, but yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit the next exhibits. No objection.
It's 262 and 27. Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photographs to the jury, please?
Okay.
And Ms. Tillman, if I could have photograph 1905. Next, Blair, what's up on the screen is photograph 1905, which has now been marked as exhibit 262. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And is that the evidence bag that you were presented with regard to items labeled as 7-5?
That's the seal on it. Yes.
Now, just in general terms, as far as the process that you're talking about, sort of fitting the puzzle pieces together, how long and how laborious a process did that entail?
It in this case specifically,
Yes.
there were many items to look at, so it did take quite a bit of time.
And if I could have photograph 1908. And do you recognize what's up on the screen, which has now been marked as exhibit 263?
I do.
Is that one of the pieces that you have from item 7-5?
Those are the 3 pieces in item 7-5.
And so the 3 pieces from that were all read apparent plastic pieces from that same item. Is that correct? May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another 7 photographs. If you can take a look at those. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The seal and then the items from item 7-6.
And what's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed when you were doing your analysis in the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, call will seek to introduce the minutes and next exhibits. No objection.
What did I miss? What did I miss? What did I miss? Had to take that. I drank too much coffee this morning. I got my mic on. Yeah, I know. When I was skinny, I had that haircut. Remember, was there Shay O'Connor? Nothing compares. I had that haircut.
It's 271 and 277.
Nothing compares.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs to the jury at this time.
Okay.
And I was a cutie bald.
I have photograph
Actually wore
192.
bald well. So I'm told. I have a cute bald head. Okay, we're getting to pictures. I gotta get ready. Ronnie, CGN Text. This is my sound with the mic far away. This is a sound with the close up. Which is better? Far away or now? Please.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just rotate that. Okay. So, Mr. Lear, what's up on the screen as it's, that's photograph 1921, exhibit 271. That is the evidence bag or box that contains the items in reference to lab item 7-6.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Oh, one says now, one
With
says
reference
far,
to that, as
far
far as the labeling is
away.
concerned, these are items that were submitted by the state police, correct?
Um,
As far as you know.
I'm trying to
yes.
find my sweet spot.
And from the labeling that's exhibited in, labeling that's being shown in Exhibit 271, that actually has an indication of who the submitting agency is and the date that the item was collected, correct?
Presumably, I don't know because that's not our lab's labeling system.
It's fair to say, as far as your observation of these evidence,
Oh!
or opening them, or
Yo!
they had different dates on them.
We hit 203 viewers.
I
Most
don't
of
know.
them,
I don't know.
most of them on X.
Ms. Gilman, if I could
Welcome.
have photograph 1924.
Huge deal for me.
And again, what's up? Now, what's up on the screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 272. These were the items that were marked within that box or that
Yeah.
item 7-6. Is that correct?
Correct.
It appears two pieces of clear plastic, correct?
Apparent plastic, yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Oh my gosh, y'all. We hit 200.
Showing you another series
But-
of photographs if you could review those.
Thank you for
You're finished.
watching. 195 of you are from, I hate X, Twitter. I don't know what you call it anymore. Thank you for joining me. You were very valued and appreciated. And I truly mean that. Come on over to my YouTube. But you're more than welcome to stay and comment or whatever you do on X. I just got on X a few days ago. Thank you so much. Wow. I would still call it Twitter. Okay, good. It's the only thing I really know it. It just doesn't feel right when you call it X. It's almost like, um,
And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, ma'am?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The item 7-8.
And again, fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in the lab with reference to item 7-8.
Yes.
Come up and seek to introduce the witness.
well, she does wear that hair well. She's a cutie. But do you know what? Working in the field she's in, I'd have short hair too. I thought I did. I'll go look. I don't- Let me end my bead and let me go look. I think I did. Um,
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photos to the jury as well? Ms. Valier, with regard to the items that were contained within these variety of bags or boxes that you had received as evidentiary items, what, if any, difference was there between sort of color, the size, the shape of the different items that you received?
Sorry, what? Can you repeat the question?
Were they all sort of uniform as to their color, as to their size, as to their shape, or what, if any, differences did you note between them?
Between the items that we've already published, or just all of them? And
All of them in general.
so some of the pieces were clear apparent plastic, some were clear apparent glass, some of them were red apparent plastic, some of them were silver colored apparent plastic.
And as far as the size of these pieces of plastic or glass. that
it is
you
now Ronnie.
received,
It is
were
now
they-
CG and
How would you
text.
describe sort of their physical size, shape, things of that nature?
Some of them were very small, and some of them were larger. I can't tell you the dimensions without looking at my notes.
And you took measurements with respect to each of the pieces that you analyzed, each of the pieces that you examined, and each of the pieces that you ultimately tried to find a match for, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1931.
My link now is on Twitter is now
And,
up
what's on the
for
screen,
YouTube.
marked as Exhibit 278, do you recognize as the back
When I
box
hit
that contains
300
that?
subscribers, there will be
Yes.
a giveaway.
And Ms. Gilman, if I
There
could have
will be
1931.
a pate, and then it'll be 500. Then it'll be
Now, what
1,000.
contains in this exhibit up on the screen, number 279,
I
do you
need
recognize
1,000.
that as contents that were collectively sort of labeled as item 7-8?
I do.
And so from a variety of those different pieces that are depicted up on the screen in exhibits 279, each of them would have been respectively labeled as far as, say, 7-8.1 or 7-8 point something else. Is that fair to say?
I heard
So the laboratory numbering system where it goes 7-8.1, that's if you take like a subsample. So if I had collected like debris or something out of this item, that would then be labeled 7-8.1 because it's a new entry in our limb system. These are just the different pieces in 7-8. In my notes, I gave them labels as such as piece A, piece B, piece C, all the way down to, well, however many there were.
You labeled them individually as
Y'all,
letters, is that correct?
they say that
Correct.
they were able to put that back together 100% accurately.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have.
I have
photograph
questions
1938.
about that. How could that be possible?
If you could zoom just a little bit in on that. The next layer, what's depicted up on the screen within this exhibit of 282, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that one of the pieces that was submitted within this as far as 7-8 that you examined throughout the course of your analysis here, correct?
It was. There's actually two pieces in that. There's the large one in the middle, and there's a very small one up in the corner.
Okay.
Unless you broke it and saved all the pieces, how in the hell could you put it together perfectly? I'm anxious to see if that's what's testified to. That is what somebody said came into some of the grand jury documents. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And push me in Discord. That's another place, y'all. I need somebody to help me with Discord because I see a lot of vloggers like me, YouTubers, who have their live posted. I want to know how they do it. I have to pay for it. Heck, I'll find a way. I don't know who complimented me earlier, said I look like Emily D. Baker. And I was like, oh, I love you. I think she's a gorgeous young woman. I'm older. I'm much older than her. I think by 10 years, maybe. I'm in my 50s. Yes, I'm 53. As old, y'all. As old. Oh. Y'all pray that I get this done. I have so much bead work to do. I'm scared. I have 2 months to do a year's worth of beading. And when I say a year's worth, I kid you not. I think that barrette that I showed you earlier took me 60 hours. There are some beaders out there who are faster than I am, but I'm very particular. But it took me 60 hours to bead that. I don't know if you can see how little those beads are. Yep. Took a lot of work. Came out great though. Twilight. Oh my God, that's good. That is good. Oh, someone wanted to know what I was doing with the lighter. I'll show you when I do it again. It's cool. What happens is, are we in a sidebar? Oh, dang, nabbit. I'll get it back. Don't worry, we good. Y'all, I can't keep up. I want porcupine quills. Send me quills. Introduce me to this woman. I want to learn to quill. I've got a project. Introduce me, my dear. Let her know. Hey, got this young chick. I'm young in my native art. Cowgirl, you didn't see my regalia, did you? I had it earlier today on the screen. Oh, Ronnie, are you a cake designer? We have something in common. I need to learn to quill. Is the Native American, is the Navajo woman in Texas? Or can she do YouTube? My beading work is nowhere near the quality of some people's. I've only been beading probably 600 hours worth of beading over the couple of years, year and a half. And that's really not a lot compared to a lot of natives. And everything I've done just by my own gumption. Gumption. And my grandma says gumption. Here, let's see if I can pull that picture. I'll share it. There's my picture of my regalia. Did it all. I had guidance, but that dress, all the bead work, I did. See if I can blow it up. So you can see I have the fan in the other room. Here's the barrette right here. I have the earrings there. The headband matches. And then I have another barrette back here holding my feathers. I got the belt, my moccasins. First time I ever sewed a dress. I did it. Oh, that's cheap. Now quill work goes for like 200-300. Okay, I'll be back.
Thank you. Maybe you see the close back.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
You recognize those, ma'am?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
Photos that I took of item 7-10.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm gonna introduce you as the next. Go there. And again, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish that to the jury.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if I could have photo 1952. And Ms. Blair, what's depicted up on the screen is that the ballot box that contains item 7-10.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1955. Again, what's up on the screen is that the item that was contained within that evidence.
Yes.
Can I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another series of photographs. If you could review those until we're finished.
Hey,
Do you
mods,
recognize
I'm
what's depicted in those
back.
photographs?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
The packaging that item 7-9 and 7-19 came in.
And what's contained within those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of those items when you received them at your station and within the trace unit?
It is.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Almost seek to introduce and admit as the next.
People ask what I use. This is a very thin fishing wire. It's plastic. And so what I do is you take this, see the end? I don't know if you can see it. See that little knot? It will burn you. Makes its own knot. And I don't have to make a knot. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? What is bad and painful coming, CG and Tex? The autopsy photos? Those haven't come in yet, have they? We did have the ME up here. I've been thinking about the other Karen trial. It is the Karen Swift murder trial. Her husband, David Swift, is on the hook for murder. And I've been covering it. But I got to be honest, it's pretty
And Your Honor, with
dull.
the commission may publish what's now been marked as 296.
So I think what I'm going to do is just
Yes.
do synopsis at the end of days. She's probably exhausted, y'all. This is horrible. I've been there. My ex. So exhausting.
Those items that she was testifying about 7-9 and 7-19.
Yes.
So dang
With
exhausting.
regard to Ms. Gilman, if I get a photograph 1962. Ms. Blair, now what's been depicted up on the screen and been marked as exhibit 297. Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a little bit on items of evidence, please.
Well, I haven't seen today. We're going to watch that tonight.
Now, contained within this are 3 clear pieces of glass or plastic, if you know.
I'd have to look at my notes to see what I wrote them as.
My other question, Your Honor, with the court's permission, may.
Yes. Go ahead, look at your notes.
And after referring to your notes, what type of material is that?
3 pieces of apparent plastic.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down. I'm sorry. Up. Thank you very much. The item that's contained above those 3 pieces of apparent clear plastic, what is that?
That is item 7-19. That is a black straw.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1964. And what's up on the screen next to Blair now, and it's been marked as exhibit 299. Is that essentially the straw next to a ruler with its measurements? Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, with reference to the photographs that I asked you to look at before, have you had a chance to review those?
I have.
And do you recognize what's contained within those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos I took of item 7-11.
And what's contained in those photographs of item 7-11, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in your lab when you conducted your analysis in reference to this case?
It is.
You're on call, will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And Your Honor, with court's permission, if I could publish.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1979. Again, next Blair, what's up on the screen is that the bag, evidence bag that contains item 7-11.
Yes.
And for the record, that's been marked as exhibit 310. Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1982. And again, Ms. Blair, what's depicted up on the screen on exhibit 311, is that the items, or the pieces of plastic that were contained within the aforementioned evidence bag in the previous exhibit, item 7-11.
Yes.
Now, with regard to the photographs that I just placed before you before, have you had a chance to review those as well?
I have.
And do you recognize what's contained within those photographs?
Photos of item 7-14.
And what's contained in those photographs of item 7-14, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in your lab when you conducted your examination in this case?
It is.
Thank you. Your Honor, I will seek to introduce in minutes the exhibit.
Okay.
Seven o'clock, and this is usually the most boring part of trial. They have so much evidence to get in. Oh. Yes, this is the witness for the state. This is state witness.
Photograph 2009.
Y'all, I'm so excited. Everybody is joining me. Y'all are awesome. I hope y'all are having a fabulous day.
Ms. Blair, if I could draw your attention up to the screen just for a moment, what's now been marked as exhibit 325. Do you recognize
I do.
That's the bag that contained item 7-14, is that correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I can have photograph 2012. Again, Ms. Blair, what's up on the screen is that the item that was contained, labeled as item 7-14 in that.
I'm sorry, I need all, please.
What's depicted on the screen is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what was contained in the exhibit bag from the previous exhibits, labeled as item 7-14.
Where are the microphones for this court?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Were you able to review the bulk of those photographs that I just placed before you?
Yes.
And do you recognize those?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos of item 7-12.
If I could have, excuse me, ask those to be marked as the next.
Okay.
It's 328 through 342.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2015. Mr. Blair, if I could direct your attention up to the screen. What's contained and what's been marked now is exhibit 328. Those, the evidence pack that contained the items labeled as 7-12.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2018. Ms. Blair,
Right now, I think this testimony is just getting in all of the evidence.
those are the items,
Truthfully, I don't.
7-12 that were contained within that evidence pack from the prior exhibit.
Yes.
As far as those photographs that I
I
presented
thought
to
I
you
sat on my
a moment
needle.
ago, have you had a chance to review those as well?
I have.
And do you recognize what's contained within those photographs?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos of item 7-13.
And what's
They're just
contained
laying
within
down
those
groundwork
photographs,
for
is that a
all of
fair and
the
accurate portrayal
evidence
of
and the
what was
glass.
contained, or labeled as item 7-13.
It is.
Your Honor, almost, may I approach?
Yes.
Almost seeks to introduce the minutes and next exhibit. Okay.
Like I said, the boring part. The boring part. My gosh, we're at 2:13. Oh my God. Did somebody take away? Oh, that reminds me. Yeah. Let me do this. I want to send myself. I have pictures. Let me go get my pictures.
It's 343 through 351 now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kilman, if I could have photograph 1997. And Ms. Blair, what's depicted on the screen in that photograph, which now been marked as Exhibit 343, is that the evidence bag that contained the items labeled as 7-13?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2000. And Ms. Blair, directing your attention to the screen, those are the items contained within that exhibit bag from prior exhibits that have been collectively labeled by the lab as 7-13.
Yes.
As far as the photographs that I had placed before you, have you had a chance to review those?
I have.
And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
Photos of item 7-15.
And what's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what was contained in item 7-15?
It is.
You want to come up to introduce the minutes?
No objection.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Madam Court Reporter. Yeah.
Okay, y'all, I am trying to pull up the pictures of the truck that I bumped into because of the way he was parked. I couldn't see it. And I kind of, instead of parking straight in this, well, actually, the spaces are kind of like that. So this is him. This is me. I pulled in, they pulled out and left. He came in and pulled in this way. So when I backed out, I went.
Mr.
like
Lally,
that,
those
and
are
I
the
hit
last
him.
exhibits we'll be doing today.
So I'm trying to get my images up because I want you to see the tail light pieces.
Ms. Blair, if I could direct your attention to the screen, you recognize this as the evidence bag that contained item 7-15 that's now been marked as Exhibit 352.
I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2077. Again, Ms. Blair, what's up on the screen are those the items that were collectively identified by the lab as item 7-15 from that evidence bag contained in the prior.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Ms. Valera, as far as your analysis was concerned with regard to each of these items, and we'll get to that a little bit, I think, the next time. But with regard to the labels that you assigned to them as far as letters of the alphabet, A through whatever letter that you went, when you were conducting your sort of physical match analysis, how was that shown on a particular piece, or did you label those pieces, or how were you able to sort of quantify that?
The pieces that were large enough to, I printed out labels from a label maker with the lab number, the item number, and then the piece that the letter that I assigned it, so ABC, and my initials, and those are on the pieces.
And then as far as those pieces were concerned, if you were able to find some consistency between, say, piece A and piece B, and you were able to sort of fit them together, what, if anything, did you do to memorialize that sort of physical method?
Within the same item, if there were two pieces that fit together, I documented that with photos, wrote it down in my notes, and then if it was within the same item, I held it together with tape and then repackaged it still together as a single piece.
And as far as these consistencies or the matches that you were examining or looking for, was that solely within piece to piece, or at some point did you also look at sort of a larger piece as far as a housing unit for a tail?
For this case,
Yes.
yes.
And with regard to pieces that you had sort of put together, what, if anything, were you able to do with regard to some of those pieces and the tail light housing, item 3-1?
From those items that we just saw, I was able to piece one larger piece with many of those pieces all fit together into one piece that I then called piece 1. There were some other pieces that also fit together among those question ones that I called pieces 2, piece 3, piece 4, and piece 5. Piece 1 was a physical match with item 3-1, the taillight.
Your Honor, if, I think that may
Okay.
be wrong.
All right, so, Ms. Valera, we're going to have to have you back on Wednesday. Okay, but, I'm going to ask you to wait for jurors, so we don't meet tomorrow, we'll meet Wednesday, and we'll go a full day Wednesday with an abbreviated lunch and sometime between 4 and 4:30. So please do not discuss this case with anyone, don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it. I know we took a long time today with getting exhibits in before you, but it's a very important part of the case, and it does just take some time, so we appreciate your patience. All right, we'll see you on Wednesday.
You are muted.
Do you need me to contact somebody?
Thank you, maybe see your court is still in session.
So you are all set, you can go.
So I was just talking to Mix Valera about whether I needed to call Lawrence Court for her or not. So you are all set. Thank you very much. All right. You don't need me for anything until Wednesday? We'll see you Wednesday.
Court, all rise.
Ah! Dagnabbit! See, it's still doing 2 places to turn it on, and I have a way to fix it. I'm waiting for the connector. No, it's not in Elaine. I have 2 buttons. I have to turn that mic on, not 1. So hopefully I got it ordered. It should be in tomorrow. So anyway, we'll go back to the other picture. But that's the tail light. But when you look at what hit the floor, it was only 4 little pieces. I mean, it was 4 pieces. I'll blow this up. By the way, I've not heard from the dude. My insurance may have. But see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not 45 pieces of plastic. I call it glass, but it's plastic. These vehicles, I hated it happened. My bumper I pushed it back out. We're fine. My lens got a little crack, but we're fine. But no sandblasted way. That guy, I mean, she would have had 45 pieces of broken glass. That's in my humble opinion. And I am sorry. I do have a device coming that's going to make it where I don't have to push 2 places to turn the mic on and off. I mean, I can turn it off in one, but I got to plus 2 to turn it on. Yep, construction truck. A lot of construction trucks, honestly, around where I live actually are ranch hands too. They do a lot of construction work for ranch hands. So interesting. I'm going to go I'm going to go clean up all the photos later that we took today, and I'm going to put them in a file and bring them over to Discord somehow. I got to figure out how to do it. Yeah, it wouldn't. And my mama has a Lexus. I don't know if it's a mini SUV. I don't know. I have to go. I wrote down the year, make, model, and I'm going to go compare it to mama's. But I think the back lights are that's pretty much the same on both of them. But yeah, they. I used to do body work. I used to be with a guy when I was in my 20s who owned an automotive repair shop and a used car lot, and I was so good at the bondo and the body repair work. I mean, sometimes they'd have to do the muscle part, but I did all of the fine stuff. I did the oil, the filter changed, I changed belts, I've done tires. I'm not dumb when it comes to cars. And I got to tell you, the state is BSing it beyond BSing it. So I'll be on at 7 o'clock tonight, Lord willing. Lord willing. And we will try and get caught up on the Karen Swift murder trial. All right. You guys are so awesome. Mods, as always, I love and appreciate you. Everybody who's watched me on YouTube and Twitter, thank you so much. Please make sure you share, like, and subscribe. It's very hard, but a lot of fun doing this. And I just want to see my channel grow because I'm going to get to a point soon where I'm going to do it in sign language when I talk at the same time. But I don't have all the technology set up yet for me to do that. Soon. Chat with you tonight, y'all. See you later.